The winter winds hummed softly over the mountains of Izu as morning light spilled across the valley. A lone young man named Kaito Renji, wrapped in a worn indigo kimono, stood barefoot on the cold wooden floor of the old dojo, his breath forming mist in the chilly air as he bowed before the simple, wooden statue of the Bodhisattva of wisdom. Every day he began his morning the same way. Quiet breath, stillness, emptiness, not because he wanted to, but because he needed to. Kaito was not like the other students of the prestigious Omi Dojo. While they learned new techniques quickly, Kaito struggled. While they mastered sword forms by the third attempt, Kaito still stumbled. While they displayed precision and balance, Kaito felt clumsy and unfocused. The other young warriors whispered behind his back, "He's too slow. He will never be a samurai. His mind is too heavy." And Kaito believed them, at least until the morning an old man appeared at the dojo gates. The man was small, perhaps in his late 70s, with thin white hair and eyes that sparkled like moonlight on water. He carried a walking staff carved with kanji symbols. His presence was soft, so soft that even the birds did not fly away when he approached. The head instructor, Master Edo, greeted him respectfully. "Master Ryotatsu, you honor us." Edo bowed. The students whispered, "Ryotatsu, the wandering sage of Kamakura, the man who trained generals and monks alike?" Ryotatsu's gaze drifted slowly across the dojo until it rested on Kaito, who was trying to stand behind the taller students to hide his shortcomings. "You," the old master said, "step forward." Kaito froze, confused. "Me, master?" "Your mind is loud enough to shake the ceiling," Ryotatsu said, tapping his forehead with the staff. "Come." Kaito stepped forward nervously. The old man studied him for a long moment. "You train hard, yet you learn slow. Why?" Kaito swallowed. I don't know, master." Ryotatsu nodded. "That is the problem. You try to learn with a mind that is already full." He turned to the entire dojo. "Samurai of Omi, you train your bodies, you polish your blades, you memorize your kata. But how many of you polish your emptiness?" No one answered. Ryotatsu lifted a small cup and poured water into it from a kettle. He kept pouring until the water overflowed and spilled onto the floor. The students gasped. Ryotatsu looked at Kaito. "This cup is you, already full. Nothing new can enter a full cup." Kaito bowed his head, ashamed. But then Ryotatsu smiled warmly. "Do not hide your weakness, boy. In your weakness, I see the seed of greatness. You struggle not because you are slow, but because you lost what children naturally have, the beginner's mind." He raised his staff. "From today on, you train under me." The dojo erupted in whispers. Why had the great sage chosen the weakest student? Ryotatsu silenced them with one command. His training will reveal the key you all have forgotten. That night, Ryotatsu took Kaito to a quiet clearing outside the dojo. Fireflies flickered softly around them as the moon rose high. "Kaito," the old master said, "tell me how long you have trained." 3 years, master." "And how much have you learned?" Kaito hesitated. "Not enough." Ryotatsu smiled again, a wise answer, but wrong. He tapped Kaito's chest gently. "You have learned too much. That is why you have become slow." Kaito looked confused. Ryotatsu explained, "Soshin, the beginner's mind, is the secret to infinite learning. When you believe you already know something, your learning dies. When you remain as empty as the first day you picked up a sword, you grow without limit." He raised his staff to the sky. A beginner sees thousands of possibilities. An expert sees only one. Kaito listened closely. Something inside him shifted. Ryotatsu handed him a plain wooden stick. Tomorrow, you will begin learning the sword again." "But master," Kaito said softly, "I already know the basics." Ryotatsu's eyes sharpened. "That," he said, "is why you must start over." The next morning, all the students gathered around as Ryotatsu guided Kaito to the center of the courtyard. "Kaito, perform the first kata." Kaito bowed, took a deep breath, and moved through the familiar motions, but Ryotatsu shook his head. "Your sword is moving, but your mind is not." He pointed to a small bucket of water. "Strike the surface with your stick." Kaito struck. Waves rippled. Again, Ryotatsu said. Kaito struck harder, bigger waves. Ryotatsu raised a finger. "Now strike, without disturbing the water." Kaito frowned. "How can I strike without touching it?" "Exactly," Ryotatsu said. "A mind that tries to strike creates force. Force creates disturbance. Disturbance clouds learning." He tapped the bucket. "Your first task, still your mind." For hours, Kaito watched the water. He breathed slowly. He lowered the stick. Stillness, calmness, silence. Only when he had forgotten the idea of striking did the surface remain completely smooth. Ryotatsu nodded. "This is Soshin. You are beginning." For the next weeks, Kaito trained in ways no other student understood. While they practiced quick attacks, Ryotatsu told Kaito to walk barefoot on gravel to understand discomfort. While they practiced precision, Ryotatsu told Kaito to draw circles on paper to learn fluid motion. While they practiced sparring, Ryotatsu told Kaito to close his eyes and listen to the wind. "Why do you train him like a child?" one senior student complained. Ryotatsu answered, "Because children learn faster than you. Children do not pretend to know, they do not fear mistakes, they do not carry pride. This is why they grow." Kaito slowly began to understand. His movements became softer, smoother. He stopped forcing learning and began receiving it. Every day, he emptied himself. Every day, he allowed new understanding to enter. The other students noticed. Kaito was changing. One morning, Ryotatsu blindfolded Kaito and took him to the bamboo forest. "Cut a single stalk," the master said. Kaito swung. He missed. He swung again, missed again. "Kaito," Ryotatsu said, "you see the world only through your eyes, but a samurai must see through his body, his breath, his awareness." He placed Kaito's hand on a bamboo stalk. "Feel the life inside it. Feel the wind around it. Listen." Kaito closed his eyes. He felt the vibrations of the bamboo swaying. He heard its subtle creaking. He sensed space around it. He swung. The cut was perfect. Ryotatsu nodded proudly. "When you look with old eyes, you see nothing new. When you look with new eyes, the whole world opens." This was Soshin, the beginning mind, the infinite learner. Kaito's training grew more intense. Ryotatsu deliberately gave him tasks designed for failure, balancing on uneven stones, catching falling sticks blindfolded, writing kanji with his non-dominant hand, repeating a kata backward, fighting with weaker students. Each time Kaito failed, Ryotatsu smiled. "Good. Again." The senior students laughed. "You celebrate his failures?" Ryotatsu answered, "Yes, because he dares mistakes you are afraid to make." He turned to Kaito. "A warrior who fears failure learns slowly. A warrior who embraces failure learns endlessly." Kaito bowed. From that day, he welcomed mistakes. He accepted them. He studied them. He used them. And he grew faster than ever. One day, Ryotatsu announced, "Kaito, your training leaves the dojo now." He took him to the bustling town square. "What will I learn here, master?" Ryotatsu pointed at a fisherman tying knots, a potter shaping clay, a merchant negotiating prices, a child chasing a paper ball, an old man sweeping the street. All of them, Ryotatsu said, are masters. Kaito watched carefully. The fisherman repeated the same knot until it was flawless. Shoshin. The potter reshaped the clay each time it collapsed. Shoshin. The merchant listened deeply before he spoke. Shoshin. The child laughed every time he missed the ball and tried again with joy. Shoshin. The old man swept the ground as if it were an honor. Shoshin. Kaito bowed his head in awe. Ryotatsu said, the mind that is willing to learn sees teachers everywhere. Months passed, season after season, training after training. Kaito no longer learned like a warrior. He learned like a child, curious, empty, open. His mind became clear, his spirit became light, his movements became effortless. And then one evening, as the sun bathed the dojo in gold, Ryotatsu called the entire school. Tonight, he said, Kaito will demonstrate the secret of infinite learning. All eyes were on him. But for the first time, Kaito did not feel fear. He stepped onto the wooden floor. He bowed. Then he moved, not with force, not with technique, not with pride, but with pure presence. Every motion was new, fresh, alive, empty and full at once. He was not trying to be perfect. He was simply beginning. When he finished, silence filled the dojo. Even the wind outside seemed to pause. Ryotatsu spoke softly. This is Shoshin. He placed a hand on Kaito's shoulder. The boy who once struggled to learn now learns faster than all of you. Not because he knows more, but because he knows nothing. Kaito bowed deeply. Tears filled his eyes, not of sadness, but of realization. The greatest strength of a samurai is not mastery, but the humility to remain a beginner forever. And so, the young warrior who once doubted himself became what no one expected. A student for life, a seeker without pride, a swordsman whose blade was sharp, but whose mind was sharper. He walked a path that would never end, a path without walls, a path open in every direction, the path of Shoshin, the path of infinite learning. The days that followed were filled with subtle lessons rather than grand displays of skill. Kaito moved through the village with his senses sharpened, his awareness like the surface of a still pond. Every sound, every movement, every fleeting glance became a teacher. He noticed the way the children's laughter carried through narrow alleyways, how the merchants' hands trembled when counting coins, how the wind whispered through bamboo groves in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. Kaito understood that the world itself was a dojo and that every living being was a master in its own right. No longer did he rush to strike to show strength or to master a technique. He listened, he observed, and he absorbed everything as though he were tasting water from a mountain spring for the first time. He began to see lessons in the smallest details, the way a cat crouched before it pounced, the way a bird adjusted its wings mid-flight, the way a potter's fingers pressed clay into form without hesitation. Every act, no matter how ordinary, contained infinite depth. And Kaito's mind, emptied of pride, received it all. One morning, while walking along the river, Kaito saw an elderly fisherman struggling to lift a net heavy with fish. The man's back was bent, his hands roughened and bleeding from the rope. Without thinking, Kaito approached and helped him carry the net to the shore. The fisherman looked